one of the founding members of the department. It was created only in 2007, not too long ago. And I helped shape the vision of who was supposed to be in here, how we wanted to bring together people that do more social sciences and more humanities and people that are practitioners.
So as we teach students about the corporate monopoly of the media, we also want to emphasize how vitally important it is to engage in the critical production of alternative media.
I think the great thing about MCS is definitely the students, because they're so creative, they have a lot of great insights. I've learned so much in terms of rethinking how we teach here, how we can do it with more fun and less boring homework.
Since we're in media studies, I also think that the way we learn should be entertaining and fun, and something that everybody's invited to come into.
I've taught at a couple of different institutions, and when I got the opportunity to come to UC Riverside MCS, I leapt at it. So this is exactly where I want to be.
This campus in particular is very unique, given its racial and ethnic, the racial and ethnic populations of the students. Other universities where I've worked, merely by entering the room, I've been the point of diversity because I've had all white students, which that's never a question. But
my favorite part of teaching in MCS really has to do with the kind of freedom to explore different kinds of media.
With this kind of major and this kind of department, I feel like I don't have to start and reinvent the wheel. I don't have to defend having politics being at the center or of what we do. I don't have to apologize for that. We can just go straight to what we're trying to do, which is actually contribute to a decolonial, anti-racist, homophobic and anti-misogynist critique of where we live, what we do.
I'm glad MCS supports that message and actually is actively politically supportive of diversity.
Our faculty is one of the best, I think, nationwide. And the reason why I think we're awesome and pretty badass is that we're diverse in our research interests. We engage with students, and then also we engage probingly in terms of our scholarship, and we ask the questions that are not always politically safe, but we come together in these kinds of inquiries and in our interests. And that, I think, is the best of MCS.
Well, my first book was about the history and politics of the women's liberation movement in Japan in the 1970s during the period of worldwide radicalism. And my second main project was a documentary film about the prison industrial complex and women in the prison abolition movement.
My research interests are Asian cinema, Asian American film and literature, and feminist film theory.
My main research interests are masculinity and masculinity studies, in particular in relationship to video games, film, television, internet in general.
My current research interests actually flow out of my last book, which was exploring multiple expressions of modernity, which are become actually completely a global reality because of the fact that media has such an ubiquitous, persistent, pervasive presence in the world.
I'm a Latin Americanist by training. I studied literature and then I studied film, and I've been working on social movements and their use of video.
My current research interest is globalization, Chinese media and cultural studies, and the cultural policy studies and film industry studies.
I'm working currently on a book on representations of torture across media. It's real. It's super fun.
My current project is conceived as a feminist of color intervention into the landscape of popular culture, and it's called The Guardian Princesses. And what this is an alternative to the traditional representation of the damsel in distress, and it turns the princess instead into a superheroine who works with other princess friends to protect the people and the planet. And the mission of this project is to increase racial, gender, diversity, and body and representations of disability as we create these new type of feminist political fantasies for the next generation of children.
So the current research interest is actually looking at fashion, and I'm exploring it and calling it unveiling fashion. So looking at the expressions of the veil in this different context, I see it as an expression of modernity.
And I'm asking questions about scopic regimes of the visible and how the visible is not necessarily the visual.
Right now, I'm researching a history of gesture and representation in the 20th century, from basically the invention of movies to virtual reality.
Everything from violence against Indigenous women. I also am an attorney, so I'm looking at a lot of the school to prison pipeline issues for students with disabilities. A lot of research into the Christian right and how they use media to support their different politics, but also the possibilities of change, even within circles you think couldn't change, like the Christian right.
And my first book was on Vietnamese and Vietnamese diasporic culture in terms of film and literature. My second book is going to be on Vietnamese cinema, the history of it, and then also it provides a contemporary reading of Vietnamese films today. I also edited an anthology of the art and literature by Southeast Asian women in the diaspora.
And that interest in contemporary Filipino-American art and performance, literature, and history through a decolonizing lens continues to be what my main research interests are about.
I'm interested in questions of race and gender. I believe that they intersect, that you can't really separate any of them, so all my teaching tries to engage that, even if I teach classes that are called Gender, Media, and Latin America, for instance, but they will look at race. You can't talk about gender without talking about race in Latin America, and they look at capitalism at the same time. I teach classes on Mexican cinema, and similar issues start coming out.
In the past few years, I've taught classes including Introduction to Media Studies, Global Communication, Chinese Media and the Society, and Global Chinese Martial Arts Cinema.
I think every year I kind of look forward to teaching my fun class in Bollywood.
I teach this class, Quiz at Kill, which is a very popular class.
My favorite classes that I love to teach here are Asian horror, feminist film theory, and the Vietnam War in film.
I teach entertainment law, disability culture, queer color, cultural critique.
Increasingly, I've been actually teaching comic books and graphic novels and comic theory.
So currently I teach classes such as Decolonizing the Screen and Media and Militarism, and another course I teach is called Gender, Media, and Violence, and this course deals with everything from pornography and sexual violence to how these are linked to dominant ideologies around masculinity and femininity.
I teach, I like to say, media archaeology. I'm trained as an art historian, but also as an artist, and I like to bring that to my classes.
I think what I want is for people to question how they have come to think what they think. Everything. So I'm trying to get students to feel inspired, like I feel inspired by what is going on elsewhere, and in that sense also to look beyond their very personal concerns and what is personally interesting to them, but to see how things that are personally important to our students connect with things that seem like they're far away, but they're actually not that far away.
My goal is to encourage us to become better thinkers, to critically analyze and deconstruct the media around us, and figure out how we can work together more effectively to create alternative media that can transform the world in which we live.